Welcome to Enabling Analytic Process Automation for SAP. This is Darren Walton here from DVW Analytics. I hope you find this session useful. Okay, so to kick things off, many of you will be aware that SAP have a pretty vast product catalog. So what we try to do here on this single slide is to highlight just some of the most important SAP products that are supported by DVW Analytics within the Alteryx platform. Key amongst these would be the core ERP products. Today, specifically, we'll be talking about SAP ECC and SAP S/4HANA. In the analytics space, we'll be looking at BW and the other iterations of BW, BW on HANA and BW for HANA. We also support business objects. In the planning arena, SAP BPC and SAP IBP, Integrated Business Planning. For customer experience, we work with the cloud-based solutions that SAP provide. These are variously SAP Cloud for Customer, the latest iterations referred to as SAP Sales Cloud, SAP Service Cloud, and also SAP Marketing Cloud. In the SME space, we work with Business by Design, as well as SAP S/4HANA Cloud, and for HR SuccessFactors. There are a number of legacy applications that compose the SAP product catalog. First amongst these would be the SAP Business Suite applications, CRM, SCM, ERP, PLM, and SRM. In addition to this, we support the 25 plus industry solutions that SAP have specific industry software for. So, key thing here, if you hear the words SAP and Alteryx, we'd like you to think DVW. So where do we fit into APA? Now this is a diagram that you'll see many times over the next few days, I'm sure. Where we fit is on the left-hand side with the automation of the asset inputs, okay, with a very SAP-centric view. On the automation of outcomes to applications, this again is where we fit in. Okay, so where we reading data from a range of SAP systems and also writing data into a range of SAP systems. So this gives us quite an SAP-centric view of APA. And some of our customers use the full end-to-end suite. So we're using DVW Analytics software to extract data, either selectively or mass, into the Alteryx platform, where the data is analyzed, transformed, cleansed, and so on and so forth, before being pushed into a target SAP system. But not everybody's like this. A lot of our customers will be focused on extracting data from those SAP systems into Alteryx, and then the output from the analytics within Alteryx being pushed to visualization platforms such as Tableau or Power BI, CRM systems such as Salesforce, applications such as Workday, or anything else. On the flip side, we have customers who are taking data from external systems. Again, it could be Salesforce, Workday, Excel, being pulled into Alteryx, transformed before being pushed into a target SAP system. And when we're pushing data to that target SAP system, we could be creating data, we could be updating data, or potentially we could be deleting data. So let's take a view below the system level and talk about specific capabilities. On the left-hand side again, we have our read capabilities. Okay, and the capabilities will vary from system to system, application to application. And the capability you'll need to use will vary according to specific use case. One of the most common ones is the ability to access data from SAP tables, maybe in an SAP ECC system, an S/4HANA system, or maybe SAP CRM. Now, when we talk about tables, we're talking about the access via the application layer within the SAP system. So we never ever hit the underlying database directly, be it Oracle database, DB2, SQL, HANA. We always do everything via the application layer. And that gives us a couple of benefits. Benefit one is it means that the governance and controls within the SAP system are respected. And secondly, it means that the authorizations assigned to the user who's connecting to SAP from the Alteryx are also respected. So in all these cases, I can only access the data that I'm authorized to access within the SAP system. So tables and table views are key. Okay, and we find a lot of our customers specifically with users in the tax, the finance, the audit space, really need to get access to that table data. We also support access to data via the transaction code, T code, or ABAP report level. We support SAP Query, largely legacy now in most SAP installations, but it still exists today in SAP S/4HANA, and we still find it being used within our customers, particularly within the logistics sorts of functions. In addition to these, we support the extracted data via OData, if you've enabled it within the environment. We have functions that allow us to access via the BAPI mechanism, slightly technical term I know. We have the ability to extract attachment data from those SAP systems. So maybe in an SAP ECC system, perhaps we have a PDF of a purchase order or a sales order linked to a transaction in that system. We have the ability to identify where attachments exist and extract those and position them in a location of your choice. In the BW world, we have ability to pull data from queries and query views, as well as info providers and the whole range of info providers supported by SAP BW. And if you are running an SAP application on HANA, we can pull data from SAP HANA views as well. On the right side, where we're looking to write data into SAP, we support things like BAPI and IDOC. IDOC particularly is important when we look at things such as data migrations. We support OData as well, and we have a special mechanism for pushing data into BW info providers. So where's the APA opportunity for SAP customers? What we see is three intersecting circles: analytics, process automation, and data migration. And there's a lot of natural overlap between these, and particularly between process automation and data migration. But we treat or view data migration as a special case, and I'll come into that shortly. From a pure play analytics perspective, we can extract and analyze any SAP data from any system. It could be master data, it could be transactional data, it even could be configuration data across all modules and all of those SAP systems we've spoken about. A lot of our customers will be using our software alongside Alteryx software to get data from a source SAP system, do some transformation, maybe blend that data with data from other sources, and then push it up to a visualization platform, Tableau or Power BI, for example. From a process automation perspective, there's literally an unlimited number of potential use cases. So it could be the fact that I want to automate the posting of journal entries into an SAP system, perhaps perform goods movements based upon the outcome of an Alteryx workflow, release sales orders, update master data records within the system. This is all supported by the process automation, and specifically our BAPI, OData, and IDOC capabilities. Data migration is a slightly separate case, although it uses a lot of the same capabilities within Alteryx and the DVW Analytics suite of products. And what we're able to do here is we can both accelerate and de-risk SAP migrations. So this could be a migration whereby I'm migrating from an SAP ECC system, the old flavor of SAP ERP, up to SAP S/4HANA, the new flavor of SAP ERP. Or perhaps I'm going to be moving away in some instances from SAP, and I want to get data from SAP and post it into a non-SAP system. Or the counter of that would be pulling data from a non-SAP environment and pushing it into SAP, maybe an Oracle to SAP ECC or S/4HANA migration. So just a few screenshots before we come into the demonstration. Here's just an example here in the analytics space. This is a very commonly used workflow and pattern that we use. This particular workflow here is one where we're using our table capability to pull data from the key financial accounting tables in an SAP system. And through this particular mechanism here, we're able to easily reconstruct those financial posting documents for further analysis within Alteryx. Another example here, bread and butter for us would be enabling data to be extracted from BW queries or BW info providers very, very flexibly. Another example, and something that we're gaining a lot of traction, a lot of our customers, is the ability to pull data directly from transaction codes into Alteryx. This is powerful because there's business logic built into those transactions, it's not just table data. And so we're able to consume that directly within the Alteryx environment. And here's a screenshot just highlighting one particular case of a GL account line item display transaction, FBL3N if you like your transaction codes. Away from core SAP, success factors, and the ability for us to pull data, in this case here, from SuccessFactors Employee Central into Alteryx. All our tools and capabilities work in the same way and provide the data in a format that can be immediately useful to you downstream in an Alteryx workflow. From a process automation perspective, consider the case of mass posting of GL journal entries into an SAP system. Again, this will be done cleanly using proper SAP governance through the Alteryx platform. We've seen an increasing demand for this type of capability amongst our customer base. And for data migration, Alteryx and DVW Analytics open up some really interesting possibilities. So we have the ability to extract data, again, selectively or en masse from an old SAP ECC system. Within Alteryx, we can review that data, we can cleanse that data, transform that data, ready for loading into the target SAP S/4HANA system. We then use the DVW Analytics capability to load the data into the target S/4HANA system. And then we're able to extract the data from the SAP S/4HANA system so we can do the reconciliation. So we can validate exactly, this is what we said we were going to load, this is what we did load, and it's a proof point for business users to understand and sign off the migration activity itself. Here's an example here, slightly simplified, of the loading of an SAP pricing condition record. In this case, our target system is SAP S/4HANA, our source system is SAP ECC, and here we have in a single workflow, which I'll show you shortly in the demonstration, the ability for us to pull that data from SAP into the Alteryx platform, use the various capabilities that Alteryx provide to us to cleanse and shape that data before using the DVW Analytics capability to load that data. In this scenario here, we're using iDoc to load the data into an SAP S/4HANA system. Okay, so let's now take a look at an example of Alteryx and DVW Analytics software working together. So I have here on my screen now Alteryx Designer, and I've also installed the DVW Analytics software. Specifically, we've installed the Alteryx connector for SAP onto this Alteryx Designer. The installation is very, very light. It's just a plugin into the Designer software. And this particular example is based around the migration of pricing condition record data from an SAP ECC system into an SAP S/4HANA system. Right? And this workflow has three distinct phases to it. Phase one is we have an extract phase. And here we're going to be using our table data capability to extract that pricing condition record data from the underlying tables in SAP ECC into Alteryx. And in this extract phase, we're doing some transformation and manipulation of that particular data so that we can work with it further downstream. In the second phase of the workflow, what we're doing is preparing the data ready to load into the SAP S/4HANA system. And in the final load phase here, we're actually executing the load of data. And this mechanic we're using this time is using iDoc. So before we actually run the workflow, let me just tee the example up for you. And I'll show you two screens. Okay, so the green SAP GUI screen you can see here is our source SAP ECC system. And the blue screen is our target SAP S/4HANA system. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to change the price of one of our materials and move that across from ECC into SAP S/4HANA. Now, there's a couple of things to note here. Firstly, the thing called the pricing condition type. In my ECC system, we're using a pricing condition type called PR00. And in my target S/4HANA system, I'm using condition type PPR0. Also, you'll notice that the sales organization is 3020 in my ECC system, and the sales organization in my target S/4HANA system is 1710. So there's some work we'll need to do in the workflow to enable that type of transformation. Currently, the price in both systems is recorded as $1,000 for this product. So what I'll do is let me just change the price in this system here. let's make that say $3,000. Let's record that change. And let's just display that data. Okay, great. So that's $3,000, and currently the price is still $1,000 in my target system. So let's come back to the workflow here, and let's just fire that off. And while that's running, I'll explain what's happening. So first of all, we're establishing the connectivity with our SAP system using our SAP Logon Pad tool here. Once we've done that, our credentials are passed downstream into the related DVW tools on this particular workflow. The specific tools being the table data tool, where we're putting data from the header level table, the filter tool, which we're using to pass data into this macro, and this macro has another one of our workflows for SAP data wrapped inside it. And then finally, at the far end of the workflow here, our iDoc tool, we're actually loading that data. Okay, so the workflow's run, so let's just see what's actually happened into my SAP S4HANA system. So if we come out of here and just run this, we can see now the price has been updated. Okay, so we've successfully migrated a condition record from SAP ECC across to SAP S4HANA. Now this is obviously a very small scale example, but you'll get the idea and principle of how we can go about doing these things. So what we have, if I just open up a couple of the panes here so we can see this, I've selected a particular table, and I've selected the table where my condition record data is stored. So this is the condition header record table, and I've identified the fields that I want to extract, and I've also applied some filters to those fields. So this capability is common across all our capabilities, regardless of whether we're talking about tables or queries or BW reports, doesn't really matter. And the workflow runs, we establish a connectivity to SAP, and we trigger the extract of that data. And what's nice about Alteryx is that the workflows to some extent are self-documenting. So we can sort of see at every step of the way what's actually happening to that data in the workflow. So out of this deport here, for example, I can see the record that I've extracted. I'm then using some Alteryx specific capabilities here just to clean the data up a little bit. Okay. If I move further along here, in my preparation phase, I'm doing a couple of things. Firstly, you recall that the condition type was different in my target system to my source system, and the sales organizations were different between those two different systems. So what I'm just doing here is I'm just using a formula tool to basically apply that logic to the data. What I'm also doing is preparing the data in these three branches of the workflow here, so that I can feed the right type of data into the particular iDoc that I've selected. Yeah? So the iDocs have a very specific structure in an SAP system. They want to receive data in a certain way. And this stuff we can do using our tools. We have sort of automated mapping functions so that we can align the fields we're providing in the workflow with the fields that are required by the iDoc in order for it to function. And so ultimately, when the workflow is executed, we trigger the extract, and then we transform the data, and then we load that data. Okay, end-to-end process automation within Alteryx. Now, the reality is if you're doing data migrations, you're likely to want to do everything in a single workflow. So perhaps we'll have a separate extract workflow, a separate cleanse workflow, maybe an enrichment workflow, and then finally a preparation and load workflow. But the idea, hopefully you get the idea of what's possible using these suites of tools. Okay, to finish off, let's talk about some anecdotes and give some links to some use cases if you'd like to follow up. Firstly, we currently have over 200 global customers. The one common thread across all of these different customers is the fact that they run SAP and a very varied array of SAP solutions, and that they all use Alteryx. Now, some of our customers are a little shy in terms of talking specifically about what they're doing with Alteryx and DVW. But there's a few anecdotes here. I'll allow you to read through some of these yourselves, but an interesting one is the top one here, global oil and gas company. Before Alteryx and DVW Analytics, they had a project budget of around about $5 million US, an implementation time frame of 6 months. Okay, so kind of sort of stuff we're used to from an SAP context. During the trial of the DVW software with Alteryx, one person in 1 week delivered the project. Now, my background is SAP. I've worked on SAP projects for years and years and years. Alteryx and DVW in this SAP context are completely transformative. Now, you won't believe this, okay? And I totally understand. So what I'd encourage you to do is, if you're not currently using Alteryx, do take a look at Alteryx. If you're currently using Alteryx, do take a look at DVW Analytics. Take a look at the Alteryx connectors for SAP. They can absolutely transform the way in which you work. And finally here, a few sample use cases that are available on the various Alteryx sites. I'd encourage you in particular to take a look at the Coca-Cola European Partners one. It's a webinar recording, some great anecdotes there from the presenters. I think you'll find it useful, and I think you'll find it enjoyable to look at. All the others are well worthwhile taking a look at as well. Okay, all that needs to be said is to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you found the session useful. If you want to make contact with me, please do so. I'm Darren Walton at DVW Analytics, and you can see here my email address is darren.walton@dvwsolutions.com. Thank you.